Welcome back to the Go to Go podcast, man. Episode 87, NBA playoffs heating up. Had game one for all 16 teams around the NBA over this past weekend. Monday, we're sitting here recording, got three games on tonight. Magic Cavs starting us off, Sixers, Knicks, Lakers, Nuggets on the nightcap. We're going to get into some hot or not. We're going to discuss uh, the rest of the series around the league and talk a little bit about, what happened in game one as well. So hot or not, man, why don't you go ahead, start us off with yours?
All right, starting off hot or not, the Pelicans have a chance to upset the Thunder in round one.
I'm gonna say that's not a hot take, and that's actually one of mine. Could the Pelicans make the series interesting, especially without Zion? You saw it last night. OKC, they had some runs, but the Pelicans had runs of their own coming up the sleeve, making it a close game. Came down to that SGA jump shot and then a good defensive stop on the OKC end to end up sealing that game for the Thunder last night. So BI, coming back from that injury, he's been out. He's starting to get more minutes. He's clearly not himself when it comes to shooting and scoring the basketball so far. I mean, if he just turns it up a little, CJ McCollum, he's still got a little bit something left in the tank. We saw that after his poor first game playing performance. He turned it up a notch last night. He got some buckets as well. That Pelicans team, they could, compete. They're a gritty team. You had Zion back into the mix. You saw what he did against the Lakers, just absolutely dominated the game before going out with the injury. The Pelicans had a real shot of winning the game. I'm not going to say the refs were on the Lakers side, but there were some calls towards the end of the game that went the Lakers away. So I'm going to say, that's not a hot take. The Pelicans definitely have a chance to make this series interesting and definitely, even after game one. They still got one to take on the road right now. If they're able to grab that, I don't see a reason why they can't compete with the Thunder.
All right, and then my second one is hot or not, the Bucks and Clippers don't need their stars to come back in the first round.
I'm gonna say that is a hot take. I don't think the Clippers exactly need Kawhi back in the first round. James Harden, he was, hot from the field. I think he went 6 for 11 from the three ball. PG did his thing. Zubac dominated the paint easily. But for the Bucks on their end, you saw 19 points in the first quarter from Dame, 35 in the first half. He didn't score the rest of the game. Middleton did step up. Brooke Lopez played a solid role. I expect the Pacers to counteract that. We're going to get into it. Tyrese Halliburton, I don't think he was aggressive enough. He only took, I believe, 7 shots in game one. Not what you want from your star player. I know you got Sabonis, some other hot hands that were going on in the game, but if you're, calling yourself the top point guard in the league, deserving to be a first team All NBA, as Tyrese, thinks he is, and his skill set, what he's shown us this season in flashes, I think he should step up, be more aggressive. This is his team. He needs to take a little bit more of the offensive route and go off. Now, as far as the Bucks, Dame turned the clock back. We talked about it last time. Can he turn that clock back? Turned it back, man. It looked like playoff Dame. He said he was able to go to Coachella last year because he wasn't in the playoffs. Now he's missing Coachella because he is in the playoffs. So good for Dame. Turned the clock back. Said he was hooping for his kids back in Portland, but I don't know if that Bucks team just has enough to get over the hump. They might be able to squeeze it out. I only think, Dame could really put this up consistently for how many games this series. The Pacers still in the end made it close, a closer game than it actually was. I mean, I think it was 30 plus point lead at one point for the Bucks.
Mm.
I expect them to play a little bit better ball, better adjustments, but Giannis being one of the best players in the world, top five player in the league, MVP, it's tough to win without him. But Dame, he's trying to give him a chance. It's kind of last year what we saw with the Sixers, I believe, with Harden when Embiid was out. Might run out of the tank in the end, but personally, I think they do need Giannis. Maybe Dame proves me wrong. I wouldn't be shocked the way he performed in game one. He got it going from the field. So I'm gonna say that is just a little bit of a hot take, but I think the Clippers got it in the bag the way they performed. Uh, Ty Lue, we all used to clown him in Cleveland, but becoming a great coach in this league, a lot of experience, big moments, playoff time. So credit to him getting Zubac the Rock, saw he had the matchup, and they really dominated the paint defensively too for the Clippers. So wouldn't be shocked if they win without Kawhi. I wouldn't rush him back right now. It's not super urgent. We'll see, how the Mavericks respond.
Those are my two.
All right, man. So you took one of
By
mine.
the
I
way,
got
I think you meant to say Siakam. You said Sabonis. It's been a while since he played for the Pacers.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely
Yeah,
Siakam dropped 30. Yeah.
yeah. You turning back
Uh
the clock like Dame? What's going on,
yeah.
man?
I thought I was turning the clock back for the Pacers, but Siakam dropped 30. He did.
Yeah, he had like 36, I think.
Yeah. Uh so hot or not, man. Dame Dalla is back.
This is a tough one because it's like I feel like either way, either thing you say can be true. So I'm gonna personally say that's not a hot take, just because what we saw from him. Like you mentioned, 35 in the first half. I believe there was a point where he had like more points than the entire Pacers team, or had more threes or something crazy like that. But then you mentioned like in the second half, he just kind of disappeared and didn't score since. And then you got, some solid games from guys like Bobby Portis. You mentioned Middleton stepped up as well. Brook Lopez, those guys did their thing. But I mean, we kind of talked about it. Like if they had any chance in this series, it was going to be on Dame's shoulders. And hey, listen, 35 in the first half, clearly it was enough for the Bucks to get the job done. So you kind of touched on how like Dame's mental and what he's been going through. And, he's hooping for the kids back in Portland. You touched on like the Coachella comments and stuff. So it's nice to see Dame back in the playoffs. I mean, we can go on and on about all the playoff heroics from Dame back in Portland, the big shot over Paul George. All those series battling Golden State. It wasn't really a battle, but it was experience. He was there. He competed. So I think it's safe to say Dame is back, but like you mentioned, but you want to see more consistency. You want to see him continue that, hot game, 35 in the first half. Yeah, it was enough this game, but like you mentioned, if you see guys getting more assertive, maybe if they don't go up by 30 at one point and, Dame kind of falls off like he did this past game, it's a different outcome. So I think Dame's back. It's the playoffs. Everyone tries to go up a notch. We've seen him step up his game a notch in the playoffs. So I'm gonna be confident, and I'm gonna say Dame continues this play at least for this first round against the Pacers, this series. I think it's safe to say Dame is back.
All right, man. Second one, hot or not. After the second half fall off from the Cavs, Donovan Mitchell can lead them to a run in the Eastern Conference.
This is tough because I don't want to like over exaggerate. I know me and you both like the Magic coming into this series, but Cavs took care of business at home. Got a nice game from Mitchell. It is the East though. It is the East, and like outside of Boston and then maybe the Knicks, we'll talk about it or whatever. Not too much else really, really scares you. But ultimately, I'm gonna just say the Cavs still don't have enough. Like, yeah, they got enough to get past the Orlando Magic at home, who literally don't have any offense. But will that be able to translate, even though it is, against some of these teams that we mentioned? But if you think about it, I mean, you look at the Bucks. You saw what Dame is capable of in the first half, and then you add back Giannis. We saw what the Celtics did to the Heat. I mean, that wasn't even fair. You look at the Knicks and the 76ers, which might be the best series in the East. Both of those teams right now look like they'll be able to handle the Cavs pretty easily. So it's going to be tough. I think the Cavs have enough juice to get past the Magic. I think they can. Although me and you came back and picked the Magic, I'm gonna stick with our picks and say the Magic win the series. But the Cavs definitely can get past Orlando in the first round. It's just gonna be tough, moving forward. See if they have enough offense, if they have enough firepower to get past some of these teams who there are some asterisks, there are some question marks, but I mean these teams are still playing really good. Like I mentioned, the Sixers and Embiid's at 80%, but he's out here throwing, self alley posters. Maxi's still getting to the rack. You saw Batum in the play-in having a career game, and then you look at the Celtics, where I mean, Porzingis is just like he's unfair. You saw what he does to the Heat, like that offense. Those guys, they just hit threes. Sam Hauser, he can come in and just light you up at any moment. The Cavs really don't have anyone on that roster besides Mitchell that can hang with those guys in Boston. The Knicks, Brunson, he didn't have that good of a game, but you saw, the supporting cast, those guys around him. Josh Hart stepped up. OG hit a couple big threes late. Mitchell Robinson and Hartenstein, they were able to contribute, kind of, do their best to hold Embiid in check. So I think the East is going to be tough, man. The Cavs, I don't know if they have enough to get past, you know, anything other than the Orlando Magic at this point. So I'm gonna say it's a hot take. I think Mitchell, we know what he can do. His days back in Utah, he touched on it last week. Like he's had some heroics. I believe he had like a 50-point game at one point. We've seen him go off in the playoffs, but it's the playoffs, man. You're gonna need more than just one heroic player. This is where teams lock in. You get multiple days to prepare for one team, multiple games. They're gonna see your best. They're gonna know what you do when it comes to games 5, 6, and 7 down the stretch. So I think you need a little more than just Donovan Mitchell at this point. Although it is enticing to take it because, like you mentioned, the East is weak, but I just don't see the Cavs having enough firepower to beat anyone other than Magic right now.
It's going to lead us to the first game in tonight's, three-game set of matchups, man. Cavs Magic in Cleveland, 5.5 point favorites are the Cavs after their game one performance. Touching on that series, sounds like you're sticking with the Magic. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, after the first game, it's tough, but I mean, I'm gonna rock with the Magic just because I'm gonna stick with the pick we made. But it's a little concerning, man. Like that offense is tough, dog. Like outside of Paulo, like who else can you really go to? We kind of mentioned this stuff when we were picking the Magic, and we kind of thought that their defense would be enough, but it is the NBA. It's a star league. Donovan Mitchell can kind of overcome all of that. And Paulo, it's his second year. He's still got to grow. He's still learning. He's still, this is his first ever playoff run. The Magic really have no playoff history at all. So this is new for pretty much everyone in that organization. So I think it's definitely going to take some time for the Magic. But I mean, if they want to win this series, I feel like game twos are always pivotal for the road team. Like you got to get one of these two first games on the road, whether it's game one or game two. So you took the L game one. It's going to be tougher, but I mean, this Magic defense, if they get going, Franz starts hitting shots. They get those athletic guys on the break. Cole Anthony comes in. Talk about Suggs. We like his energy. We like how he plays and what he can contribute on the offensive side of the ball and especially the defensive side of the ball. They're going to need a lot from these guys, but it's going to be tough, especially with Donovan Mitchell, his experience and how deadly he can be. But I'm going to pick the Magic in this game. If they lose, I'm still going to pick the Magic, but yeah, it's going to look like we just wrong.
Yeah, I'm right with you, man. Gotta stick with the gut. We went with the Magic first. Don't expect Cole Anthony came off the bench 0 for 7 from the field. He was chucking up some bricks. I think he was 0 for 4 from three ball land. I mean, Paolo Franz had a solid game. He offered some good minutes. Jalen Suggs 4 for 16. He gets a little more efficient. I mean, the Magic can compete. They need some better looks, obviously. He was 1 for 7 from three. Don't know if I want Jalen Suggs putting up 7 threes in a ball game. But if he gets a couple of those to fall that game, the momentum starts swinging. Fultz 0 for 4. I mean, the bench was really, really atrocious besides Wagner, the big man off the bench for the Magic. So I kind of expect that, the Cavs, we talk about their spacing all the time. That could be an issue. I mean, the Magic have length defensively to match up with the Cavs and their bigs. So I expect a game two bounce back here tonight for the Magic. That's going to move us onto the Sixers and Knicks. I mean, you called it. I think it's the best playoff matchup right now, especially definitely in the East. That game one was exciting from those two teams. What do you like so far?
This is kind of like this matchup was really fun because you got the star power in Philly where you had Embiid with the solid game and Maxey. After Embiid went down and seemed to be a little banged up, he kind of took over. Was pretty much getting to the rack at will, getting everything he wanted. But you just needed more from the supporting cast. Lowry hit a big shot late. A couple guys made a few buckets here and there, but I just think the completeness of that Knicks roster just is going to be a little too much for the Sixers to overcome. When you got guys like Deuce McBride coming in, Josh Hart hitting the big shots, like I mentioned, OG DiVincenzo didn't have a big game, but he's going to be due for one this series. I think he set the record for like most threes hitting a season for the Knicks this past season. So there's going to be a game where he gets hot. He can go off and hit, 5, 6, 7 threes in a game. Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson, we mentioned how, they got two big guys to throw at Embiid to give him some trouble. Yeah, they just have so much on that roster. Bogdanovic even came in. We know he's like the exact opposite of a Tibbs guy, but he came in, gave some solid offense, hit a couple big shots when the Knicks were down early to kind of give them some juice, give them the spark back in. I mean, listen, if you're the Sixers and you get 22 points from Jalen Brunson, you're expecting that to be a win, especially how hot he's been down the stretch of this season, getting the MVP talks, having this whole city of New York on his back. I don't expect Jalen Brunson to have another 22-point game this series. So you're going to get a better game from Brunson, and hopefully these guys can continue to elevate their play. This Knicks team is going to be tough. They just got so many options. They got so many guys that play well. They know their role. They play exactly how you need to play in the playoffs, and Tibbs got these guys believing in. So, I mean, it's going to be a lot of minutes from a lot of guys, but we all know Tibbs. If you're playing hard, if you're out there giving effort, you're going to play the minutes. It's just can you get another Nick Batum legacy game? Can you see Kyle Lowry turn back the clock? Can you get some more offense from Kelly Oubre if you're the 76ers? Because you know what Embiid brings, even at 80%, he's still, hitting threes, getting to the basket and ones. Like I mentioned earlier, throwing himself alleys, and then Maxey is just he's like shot out of a cannon on that court, man. I mean, as soon as he slashes to the paint, finishes, he gets to the rack at ease. So you're gonna want to see more from those, role players on the Sixers, whereas on the Knicks, they have so many role players that can get hot, that can contribute. I just think it's going to be a little too much, but this is going to be a fun series, man. Like 6 or 7 games. Each game, I feel like, is going to come down to the wire, but I definitely expect a better game than Jalen Brunson. I don't think he drops 22 every game this series.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I got the Knicks in this one as well, but Kyle Lowry, I don't think you're getting a game out of him like you did 5 for 9 from the field, 18
Yeah,
points.
and
Maxey,
that's a big Lowry game.
exactly. That's a huge Lowry game. 33 points for Maxey. I mean, you mentioned it. He was getting to the rack with ease. He was finding it easy to score baskets. What McBride did to the Sixers, I felt like just killed all momentum and killed any chance at them really winning that ball game. Coming off the bench with 21 points, 5 threes, insane coming out of a player like McBride. And you mentioned DiVincenzo really, not having the best game. He's been a huge part of the Knicks' success this year. OG, you know what OG is going to give you. He's going to give you solid play, great slash and spot up three, tremendous defense. And that's a guy Tibbs loves as well, which is also NBA player vote. Tom Thibodeau, least favorite coach to play for around the league. Players voted. So no one likes playing in that Tibbs system. Josh Hart, 42 minutes, running him to the ground. Great game from him, but yeah, Tobias Harris, I don't know what you do with him. I think he just needs to not touch the court at some point. You got to sort of just call it. I don't know. But you're looking at the matchup, Embiid, he could be a little bit more efficient on the offensive side of the ball. That knee injury is clearly bothering him. You saw him go down in that third. Sixers say he's available. Embiid will play no matter what. But it's the same storyline with Embiid come playoff time. Team needs him. Someone else has to step up. He's banged up. He's hurt. Never been healthy in these moments. And, hopefully he can get back healthy because you want to see a better matchup, both these teams at full health. But, I mean, you get anything from JB. We saw last year the type of player he is come playoff time and even the regular season. He just takes over games. And if you told me Maxey was having 33, Jalen was having 22, I'm taking the Sixers. You think they're winning that game? Lowry 18, even with McBride's 21. And so Great matchup overall. I mean, it's going to be an exciting game tonight. That one's at 7:30 East Coast game, so be looking forward to that one for sure. And then you got Lakers Nuggets, man, the nightcap. Jokic, who former, Nuggets coach George Karl said, yeah, Jokic is the greatest basketball player to ever step on the court. A lot of people, were mad at that because of his defensive abilities, but I mean, offensively, we know what he could do. Lakers and Nuggets, your thoughts on this series so far?
Well, game one looked pretty much identical to the Western Conference Finals last year. You saw the Lakers get off to a hot start. Anthony Davis, you know he's going to be able to hold his own against Jokic. He's not going to stop him. No one can stop Nikola Jokic, but he was going at him, holding his own, doing the best he could. But that second half, man, third quarter especially, you just kind of see where the Nuggets are just far and they're just above the Lakers in terms of depth, offense wise, shooting wise. I mean, it was it was pretty much exactly like the Western Conference Finals last year. In the third quarter, you saw the role players for the Nuggets get hot. Jamal Murray, he stepped up, made a couple of big shots down the stretch, and then in the fourth quarter, when it mattered the most, you just see Jokic bring it home. Now on the Lakers side, LeBron running out of gas at the end of the game, AD doing pretty much all he can, and then the role players who were playing so well for the Lakers in the regular season, who were creating so much offense, just disappeared. D'Lo 0 from 6, or I think he was 1 for 7 from three in his first
One
three for
for
the fourth
nine.
quarter, or 1 for 9. Yeah, Reeves not really much of a factor offensively, not really facilitating. I mean, it looked if you just watch the game, it looked like Torian Prince was the third best player on the Lakers. So I mean, you're gonna need a lot more from the Lakers in their role in their supporting cast if you want to beat the Denver Nuggets. But it's tough, man. I just think right now the Denver Nuggets are just the better team, especially in that third quarter where they just went on that run. KCP hit a couple really really big threes. He got hot. Reggie Jackson contributed a bit on the offensive side of the ball. Aaron Gordon doing East Bay dunks on fast breaks. Michael Porter Jr., you know what he's capable of, man. He's getting the ball, he's putting it up. So the Nuggets, they just look like a better version of themselves from last year. Another season under their belts, just able to build more chemistry. It's going to be tough to stop the Nuggets, man. They just look like a really, really complete team right now, and they got everybody contributing. Whereas you're looking at the Lakers, man. You have LeBron. At this point, we know what LeBron is, man. He's still great. He's still amazing, but he's old, bro. Like he can't do everything by himself anymore at this point in his career. AD's giving it all he can, but he's going up against, arguably the best player in basketball. You can't expect much for him. These other guys got to step up. It's unfortunate they didn't. D'Lo was playing really, really well, having basically a career season, and then when the playoffs come, when it matters the most, he's nowhere to be found. So, yeah, it's looking like a long road ahead for the Lakers and the Denver Nuggets at home, man. I mean, we watched the finals last year as a Heat fan. It's tough. It's tough to win in Denver. It's tough to beat Denver in general. So, yeah, I think the Nuggets get another win tonight.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at it, that D'Lo 1 for 9 from three is really killer for the Lakers. Well, the same thing last year. Saw him putting up shots after the game, after his poor shooting performance. Did the same thing this year. I know when it came to baseball and hitting, they say you want to stay out the cages when you're in a slump, and when you're hot, you want to get in the cages because good habits get in practice versus bad habits get in practice. And I mean, after what I saw last year, maybe it's the same thing with the shot because 1 for 9 from D'Lo, that just can't happen. AR had a solid game, AD amazing performance, 30 and he had a double double. Braun, you hit it spot on. I mean, Gabe Vincent's out there 8 minutes, didn't put up a shot. You got AD playing 45 minutes and, being one of the most injury prone players in the league. He gave it his all on that court. If you look at it, Jamal Murray 9 for 24 from the field, but he 4 for 9 from three. He did his job double double. Jokic is gonna dominate. Michael Porter, he's out there to get buckets, and he did. I mean, Aaron Gordon playing his role. You mentioned that depth when you got guys like that just getting buckets at any moment, and then you got Christian Brown who could go get buckets. We saw last year in the finals. Good spark plug, and then you got Reggie Jackson who arguably back in the day, he'd come off the bench, one of the best scoring point guards, even as a starter in the league. He could go get buckets at any time. So you look at all these guys. I mean, can you lean on AR like, you really want to step up and drop, 25 in a playoff game? Asking a lot of him. It's not the role he's been playing, but he might have to with the way D'Lo's playing. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some, less minutes from him. He put up 41 minutes, 6 of 20 from the field. It's just not efficient. When you got 13
Not good.
points, 3 assists, he's not really out there, doing too much facilitating the rock and other things. But AD's cooking. I mean, you get another 30 from AD. I think it's hard to lose. But when you have guys shooting 1 for 9 from three, you're gonna find ways to lose. And Jokic, best offensive player on the planet, best player in the NBA. You're gonna have a difficult time. And I think the Nuggets are showing once again that forget all the regular season, what goes on in the regular season. Uh, come April, come May, they're here to play, man. At home, one of the hardest to beat. You might be able to get a few on the road, but saw the same thing last year. You said in the Western Conference Finals, the Lakers, they could keep it close, get out to those hot starts, but second half, I mean, great adjustments on their end. They get it done. And Jokic and Murray, the two-man game, whether Murray's cooking or not, it's almost unbeatable. So it's
Yeah,
tough for
I
the
mean,
Lakers.
if you look at it, AD and Bron, and then you look at Jokic and Murray, like both of those guys, both of those stars for the respective teams play good enough to win. It just comes down to who's after them, who's at third, who's at fourth, fifth, sixth option. And then you mentioned all the names. You look at those guys on the Nuggets, they stepped up, they hit big shots when it mattered. You don't even have to rely on them to create offense, just rely on them to play their role and hit their shots. Where you look at the Lakers, like, I mean, I know AR had a solid game, but he wasn't, assertive at all. I think you're really going to have to see. I think he's going to be the key. You got to unlock some kind of secondary offense, some kind of secondary ball handler to go create a shot, to be able to go get a bucket or at least, draw a foul, do something, play make, set guys up because clearly having, AD drop 30-point double doubles, LeBron go out there, play his game, do what he does is not enough. You're gonna need that third guy. And like you mentioned, if D'Lo's not gonna have it, if he's gonna, continue his shooting woes, someone like Reeves is kind of like their only hope at this point. He's the only other option they have. So you want to see him come out, be more aggressive, hit those shots early, maybe get the confidence going, and then maybe Bron and AD kind of defer to him late, get that confidence building up because it's going to take all three of them to beat this entire, Denver Nuggets roster. So you're going to need to see somebody step up. I mean, I would say maybe throw a Gabe Vincent, but off of the injury, I mean, we saw him in the playoffs last year for the Heat. He had a couple big moments, but this season didn't really play much at all. Coming off of the big energy, will the chemistry, will the confidence, will he be, mentally fully ready to go in such a big moment? I feel like if he had, the entire season, then maybe that's a name you could look onto. But at this point, he might be somebody they have to lean on a lot more. So we're gonna see. But I definitely think it's gonna be key for that third ball handler, that third playmaker to step up for the Lakers because right now, Bron and AD just aren't enough to beat the Nuggets, and I don't know if any two players are gonna be enough to beat the Nuggets this entire playoff.
Not at all. And yeah, it might be Gabe Vincent time. He put up that big 30 ball in the playoffs last year for the Heat against the Celtics. I was there to witness that hot streak, but that might just be the inner heat in me saying that. But I know D'Lo's got the experience. You just got to see him contribute more. Moving on, man. Tuesday night, Suns Timberwolves. They get the action started 7:30. I mean, it's a great matchup. Ant was talking to KD. He was talking to Smack. And we call it this Ant's coming out party game one. He showed he's got to keep it going right now. What are your thoughts on this series so far?
Yeah, it pretty much went exactly how we said. It's Ants coming out party, man. And the Suns, it's just weird because they have Beal, Booker, and KD. But it's like if all three of those guys aren't playing their best game, it's gonna be super tough. Like, yeah, KD had 30, but you look at Booker, he struggled. You look at Bradley Beal, he didn't do enough. And then we keep mentioning like it takes more than just two or three guys to win games. You got really nothing else from any of those other players. So you look at the Wolves, who they're not the deepest team, but they got guys contributing. Rudy Gobert on the defensive side of the ball, arguably defensive player of the year. Cat came back. He'll give you some solid minutes, but I mean, it's those guys. Naz Reid, he's coming in. He's hitting some big shots. Alexander Walker, he was super, super efficient. Mike Conley, he even hit a couple of shots down the stretch. So it takes a complete team. And right now, you're seeing the Timberwolves stepping up, and I think they're just following in Ant's footsteps, man. I think it was the third quarter where he kind of took over, hitting those big threes, getting to the rack. Like, Ant's just in the spotlight right now. It's kind of like the light shifting to on him. He's kind of like becoming the face of the NBA on social media and stuff like that. Everyone's looking at the highlight dunks and the big shots. His shoe deal with Adidas. He just debuted, the AE1 lows. Like, everything is set up right now for Anthony Edwards to take over the league. And I don't see him stopping, man. Like, the Suns are a good team. They can score, but the way Ant is playing, the way this team is believing in him, Cat coming back healthy, the way they got that roster set up, it's gonna be tough, man. I think Timberwolves continue to handle business.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. And I think it is also not only his style of play, but you're seeing Ant become a true leader that his teammates lean on. They believe him. He motivates them. I mean, you heard it. They got KD, but we got Jaden McDaniels. Like, who's sitting up there in a press conference saying that with confidence? I mean, I think there's maybe one other guy, and that's Jimmy Butler, just sitting up there leaning, and he knows he has to put the trust in these guys. Jaden McDaniels getting tasked with, guarding some of the toughest, bucket getters in the NBA. You mentioned those three names. Brad Beal, he went 6 for 10 from the field. He's only putting up 10 shots. I mean, he did his part. Devin Booker, he was inefficient, unable to get buckets. KD, I mean, he hooped as expected, but you look at it, Nurkic, solid game. He played his role. But you look at the rebound category, 28 rebounds versus 52 for the Timberwolves. I mean, they're dominating the glass. Gobert had 16, Cat had 7, Ant had 9. When you dominate the boards like that, it's tough to win games. I mean, it really swings momentum. Second chance points, you're able to get out, go run the break. It's tough, and especially when you got, Eric Gordon 0 for 5, you got Grayson Allen 0 for 3. These are, jump shooters that are going to lead the long rebounds, outlet passes, easy buckets in transition for the Timberwolves. So when you're not hitting your shots for the Suns and put up 95 points, they're a team that needs to put up 115 plus to be able to win. They're not going to get those stops. They're not a defensive team. How do you do that? You got to rebound better for the Suns. So they got to make an emphasis on the glass. I know they got the two big men over there in Minnesota, but they got to figure something out as far as, rebounding goes. And it's going to be a tough task if Ant's hooping like this. There's not much that can stop it. You mentioned Mike Conley. He had big shots down the stretch, but he was cold the whole first half leading up to that. You got guys stepping up. You mentioned Naz Reid. You mentioned Nickel Alexander Walker. I mean, he was out there hooping. You get production like that from those guys with the way Ant played. You're not going to be able to beat the Timberwolves. You're going to have to limit either Ant, which is tough to do, or you got to just eliminate those role players from the game if you're the Suns and you actually want to compete. You have to, and you can't allow 50 plus rebounds when you're not even touching 30. There's no way to win a basketball game. It starts with the little things, and they got to figure them out, and they got another night to do so. You got all those guys that can score, figure it out, game plan, head into the next game. I don't expect D-Book to play as bad as he did in that first game, so expecting a little more from those guys and whatnot moving forward in that first game on Tuesday. Moving on, man. Second game up tomorrow night, Tuesday. Pacers Bucks 8:30. We touched on this one a little bit. Your thoughts on this series so far?
Yeah, this one's concerning if you're a fan of the Pacers or a Pacers fan or on the roster. Like, it's tough, bro. Without Giannis, we mentioned Dame had his big game, but the Pacers just couldn't get stops. It's like, and you mentioned Halliburton didn't really show out. I said, last pod, I thought, Halliburton had, he was just kind of coasting off of the injury. we'll see him show up in the playoffs. That's not what it's looking like. Now they still have a chance. Giannis is, still expected to miss the next couple games. But if the Pacers want to have any shot, even if Giannis comes back to beat the Bucks, man, you want to see Halliburton kind of be the focal point of this team. You want to see him take over. Earlier in the season, we had the All Pro talks. He was going off. Well, now you add some other players. You got Siakam next to him, who's another, All Pro, All Star kind of player. You want to see those two guys work together, and not Siakam have 36 and then Halliburton go quiet the entire game. You want to kind of see play. You want to see them play off of each other, and you want to see them both produce at the highest levels they have. But Halliburton just really didn't come out with it that first game. Game two is going to be interesting. They're going to have to come out with more energy. Now, I don't think Dame will have 35 in the first quarter again in game two or in the first half in game two. But I don't think he'll also go scoreless in the second half. So it's going to be interesting what we see from the Bucks. I think, we see more of the same from the Bucks. Maybe Dame comes down to earth a little bit, but if you're the Pacers, man, you just got to see this offense kind of get clicking. They were always the offense this season, high scoring games. They scored, I think, 157 multiple times. They're putting up all the big points, but we always knew they could score. We just didn't know if they could really defend. And we kind of saw in that first game where the defense kind of got exposed. Really had no answer for those guys on Milwaukee. No answer for Dame. Pretty much had whatever he wanted in the first half. So yeah, it's gonna be tough for Indiana to come back and try to beat this Bucks team if they're just not gonna play defense at all. And it all comes down to Halliburton, man. Can we see him step up? Got the nod to be on the USA Olympic team. Let's see him, act like he's deserves to be there. See him step up, hit a couple big shots. We all know he can facilitate ball handle, has the ability to stretch the floor, can hit the three balls. So I just want to see him be more assertive, more aggressive. I still think Indiana has a shot. I don't think this series is like completely over, but the Bucks are looking good, especially if they get Giannis back and healthy. It just kind of all depends on if the Pacers are going to be able to play defense and if Halliburton will step up. So it's going to be interesting, but I think this is still going to be a close series. A close series.
Yeah, I already said what I said about Halliburton earlier. I'm not even gonna get into it. It needs to be more aggressive for sure. If you told me Siakam was coming out 15 for 25 from the field and 36 points, I would say the Pacers are looking really good. They got a not even a great chance. They won that game, even with Dame putting up 35 himself. You're looking at the number two option. I mean, Miles Turner, he dropped 17, 5 for 17. That's not efficient at all from the field for Miles Turner. The Bucks were giving him problems. And you look at the Pacers, they were top three in basically every offensive like category in the NBA in the regular season. They come out, put up 94 points against the Giannis-less Bucks when, Giannis is one of the great rim protectors. He can guard 1 through 5. He's got the length. He's got the size, not on the court. And yet you still can't, break 100 mark being a top offensive team in the league. That's not the way you're going to win games. Even if you, can't stop the Bucks 109, you got to be able to outscore them. And they didn't do that. I mean, you look at the bench, they played pretty bad. TJ McConnell, 5 for 13 from the field. Only person on the bench with double-digit scoring. Everybody else throwing up bricks. They shot 21% from the three. You're not going to win modern day basketball shooting, under the, like, what, 28. You might be able to squeak out a win. The upper 21% is just not going to get it done. The Bucks shot 35%. Mentioned Militant, efficient from the field. Bobby Portis stepped up. Bobby's bound to have some big moments, big role player on the Bucks. Could stretch the floor a little bit. It's too easy from the Bucks. You're getting 30 from Dame, and the role players are all stepping up. So you got to limit something on the Bucks end. I know they're not the greatest defensive team, and then offensively, you're just gonna have to step up your game. I mean, Halliburton's got to put up more than 7 shots. He's your number one guy. You live or die by Tyrese at this point. He's gotten you here, and we know Siakam can have big games, but there's a reason he didn't work out in Toronto. He can't be a true number one. He's not a number one in this league. His bag's just not deep enough for that. But if you get 30 from him, you should expect to win if you're the Indiana Pacers. So It's gonna be tough for the Pacers moving forward, but I still think they got a shot. The Bucks, they look like they're pretty good with Dame right now. Mavs Clippers, they're gonna be the nightcap tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And in the Luka and Kyrie experiment, they put up 64, I think, last game. Not much, from the rest of their guys. What do you think on this series?
Yeah, this is another one of the really interesting series, but I don't. I know I picked the Clippers, but I think the Mavs will be okay. It'll be a competitive series. I think this also goes 6 or 7 games. The Mavs just came out flat, man. It just looked like they weren't ready to play. And the Clippers at home, they got that energy. I mean, I know they had no Kawhi, but it kind of feels like the tide has turned a little bit on the Clippers overall. Like for our entire lives, they've always been the number two to the Lakers in LA. Even when they had Lob City and like Kobe was on his last leg, it just still felt like the Lakers were better. And then when the Lakers were absolutely horrible, and they had the Lonzo Ball, D'Lo era, those a bunch of those role
Julius
players.
Randle.
Yeah, Julius Randle, Brandon Ingram, like all those guys, the Clippers still really didn't have anyone. So it's like the moment they could have been able to take advantage of them, they had really no players on that roster. I mean, aging DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin, like those guys are kind of on their way out at that point. So it's tough from a Clippers standpoint. But this season, you saw what they were able to do earlier in the year, and now it kind of feels like the Clippers actually have a chance to be the best team in LA right now. So I think we saw them come out with some energy. The stadium was rocking, home playoff game. Those guys, James Harden, kind of like we saw last year, game one in the playoffs, early in the playoffs, Harden's going to come out, give you arguably his best playoff performance. I think he had the most threes in a playoff game his entire career. Westbrook at this point coming off the bench, he's that energy guy. But the big story here, man, was Zubac, career high in the playoffs. The Mavericks just didn't have any answer for him in the paint. He was able to dominate on the glass and in the paint, and pretty much just got whatever he wanted. The Mavs looked a little better in the second half. They got Luka started hitting some of his shots later. Kyrie, we all know what he's capable of, but I mean, Gafford, Dwight Powell, those guys, Derek Lively, those guys were having their hands full trying to guard Zubac in the paint. So I think we see some adjustments. I think game two we see the Mavericks actually come out and look like they want to play. I think we get Luka, kind of he tightens up a bit because I mean I can understand game one. We all know Luka's history against the Clippers. We touched on the last podcast. Always seemed to have some success. So kind of looked like he came out and coasted it. They tried to turn it around in the second half, third, fourth quarter, but it was just too late. But this Clippers team, man, if they got everyone playing like this, Paul George hitting his shots, those guys getting out, running, hitting threes, it's going to be tough because they got a bunch of athletic wings. Kawhi comes back, another guy that's just going to get to his spots. He's going to hit his shots. This Clippers team can be tough to beat when they're hitting on all cylinders. But in game two, I expect the Mavs to be fully ready, completely prepared. I think Luke and Kyrie come out on their A game, and we see other guys kind of step up. I think PJ Washington was the only other player to have, scored in double digits. So I want to see some other guys on the Mavs step up, contribute as well to kind of help out Kyrie and Luka, like you mentioned earlier on. And I think they do. I think they step up. I think we see, a better effort from the Mavs, whereas it just looked like the Clippers, they came out hot. They came out with the energy and kind of ran away with it. But I think this is going to be a similar series to, kind of like the Western version of the Knicks and the 76ers, where you got the Clippers who, yeah, they got some stars, but that complete roster is playing in. On the Mavs, you got the two big names that are going to try to carry. So I think the Mavs, they right the ship, they get back on track, and this is going to be a fun series, even if Kawhi comes back or not.
Yeah, for the Mavs, PJ was the only other player in double digits. Luca, he's just got to be better from the field. 39% from the field, not what you want from your guy Luca. I mean, Kyrie balled. Luca put up 30 still. He put up 26 shots. You expect him to put up 26. Want him to hit a few more, but you mentioned Zubac dominated that game. Uh, Terrence Mann, he went 3 for 3 from three. The Clippers shot 50% from the three ball. They hit eight more threes. do the math on that. You know if you're hitting the three ball solid with the Celtics, we're gonna talk about in a minute. You can't beat a team that's just they're hot from the field and they can't miss from beyond the arc. It's tough and you can't get stops. You're an offensive team. You got the best scorer, arguably in the league, and Luka shooting inefficiently, even with Kyrie, playing out of his mind. It's tough. PJ Washington, the only other guy to step up, is you're gonna need some help. And they didn't get any. The Clippers on all cylinders, they were clicking. They're running an eight-man rotation versus the Mavs. They ran out 10 guys for a majority of the game. A couple guys got some minutes at the end, but they were sticking with their guys. Maybe minutes plays a toll later in the series, but the Clippers, really don't want to get it there because they had Harden at this point in his career playing 39 minutes in the game. He wasn't missing. I mean, Zubac 15 boards. He was, the leading rebounder in this game. It was easy for him down low in the paint. He controlled offensive, defensive side of the ball, made it look easy. And when you're limiting the paint points for the Mavericks, they're getting rid of those easy buckets. Role guys can't really get, something going, a little momentum on a free layup, tacking the rim. So if Zubac continues that, I could see him dominating this series, but expect the Mavs to do bounce back. They got these guys. They will win a game. It's not just going to be a sweep, even without Kawhi or if he comes back and whatnot. But if Harden gets the cooking like this, it's going to be a tough matchup for this Mavericks. They're going to need some 40 balls out of those two guys, Kyrie and Luka. So I think it's interesting. It matches up with that Sixers Knicks series. I like that take on your end. So we'll see what the Mavs have in store for the Clips. And moving on, Wednesday night, Miami Heat, Boston Celtics in Boston at the Garden. Another double-digit favorite, 14 and a half point favorites are the Celtics. I got my own thoughts, so I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I know this is your team, so I'll be quick. I'll let you get to what you have to say. But I mean, game one, it kind of pretty much went, exactly how every single Celtics fan dreamed. I mean, the Celtics came out and they were just on fire. Those guys just couldn't miss. And it's easy to see when you have, the roster and the depth that the Celtics have. And on the Heat side, you kind of saw, early on some of the inexperience, some of the young guys like Jaime Hero. He's been in and out, hasn't really played a full playoff series yet. Injuries. So you want to see him step up. Bam, inconsistent. What is he really going to end up giving you? You're gonna if the Heat have any chance, and listen, man, I'm right there with you. I still think they do. I still think there's a way, but you're gonna have to see these guys play, like peak basketball. They're gonna have to play their complete A game because early on it kind of seemed like Kevin Love was the only one out there really trying, really hitting big shots, which makes sense because he had the most playoff experience. But I mean, this Celtics team is a monster. Like you can just go down the roster. They got all the guys that can hit shots, and it's definitely going to be an uphill battle. But I think Miami has the ability. They kind of have the mental edge over the Celtics. That's the one key part I think they're gonna have to lean into. They're gonna have to kind of lean into, being the villain, being the bad guys, being the team that's sent the Celtics home the past two postseasons, and kind of like hope they can play the mind games and get the Celtics off of their high horse at this point because they're best team in the league, best record, one seed. They kind of believe they have, can coast to the finals. If the Heat want to have any chance of beating the Celtics, they're definitely going to have to try to come out, play physical, punch them in the mouth, and kind of knock them out that and blindside the Celtics. Because if they go out there and just say, like, we're just going to go out, play our game, and hope our better can be better than the Celtics, I just don't think that's going to be able. They're not going to be able to do that this season. Even if Jimmy does come back, I mean, even if Jimmy played that first game, I'm not so sure if there's much he can do. Like you mentioned, man, like trying to survive that barrage of threes the Celtics do, where they get hot and they can just hit from deep. It can get ugly quick. So I think the Miami Heat are going to have to get creative. They're going to have to find different ways to kind of affect the game, whether it's play super scrappy or lean into really, really lean into try to take one thing away from the Celtics, where it's maybe, completely, sell out on all the threes and kind of, maybe give away a couple easy baskets in the paint. But try to eliminate that threat of the three ball that the Celtics have because once they're hitting, there's just no stopping them. Then offensively, you're gonna have to guys are just gonna have to hit tough shots, man. They have Porzingis now, another anchor they have in the paint that's gonna just deter shots, make it that much easier at the rim. And when you look at Bam, you mentioned Halliburton. He's Team USA. Bam also on Team USA. You want to see him step up, be that number one option. Tyler Hero is gonna have to get his shot going off the dribble. Mention Jaime Jaquez, all these guys, Caleb Martin, Kevin Love. They're just gonna have to make tough shots if they want to beat this Boston Celtics team. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. I still think the Heat have a shot, but after game one, I mean the Celtics definitely aren't gonna make it easy for the Heat.
Yeah, no doubt. You mentioned Kevin Love. He only played 13 minutes, but he was out there doing his thing, hooping. I like what I saw from K Love and DeLon Wright, 5 for 5 from three. He was out there playing, like it was his last day on the court. So those are two guys I was really happy with. I was happy with Bam. He shot 10 for 18 from the field. It looked like he was, wanted it, but still, when he doesn't have the ball, he's not demanding the rock. And at that point in the game, I really think he should have because he was the only one that had it going towards the end of the first quarter, leading into the second. I just want to see him demand the ball because, like you said, it's his team now. Tyler Hero, I I don't even know I don't even know what to say, man. Our boy Arian had us on the Tyler Hero train saying I was disrespecting him. Well, I'm gonna sit back here and 4 for 13 from the field, 11 points. It is, I mean, I don't know how to put it. It's bad. Nicest way to put it. He's been horrible. I mean, big moment, open looks. It's not like these are all contested off the dribble. He's missing, and people call me crazy when I wanted Harden for him. People, whatever it is, I just want him to prove me wrong at this point. He's really doing nothing for us. I mean, he's not being a primary ball handler. He's not hitting shots. What is he doing? I want to see more minutes from Duncan Robinson. I know defensively that might be your issue. Worked his way back from an injury, but he's a guy from beyond the arc. He could get it going. You could really run sets for him and get defenses locked in. As far as the Celtics threes, KP, Hauser, Derek White, they were all clicking. Al Horford gave you some big shots too. It's tough. KP's gonna. I said it. He might be the heat killer that the Celtics needed because even though Jason Tatum had a triple double and Celtics fans freak out, he still wasn't getting easy buckets. He wasn't doing anything special. Sure, they were blowing the whistle on plays that he should have never been at the free throw line at. Bad calls, but they're gonna give the Celtics these calls, especially Tatum, a player in this league. They're gonna give him those calls. Other than Tyler Hero, I mean, Caleb Martin, I'm disappointed. The Celtic Eastern Conference killer. He looked scared. His shot, I mean, it looked like he had like I don't even want to say like nerve damage, but he was like struggling with his. He put up a shot. There were line drive front rims. Like you're not hitting a shot like that. It just I don't know what it was from Caleb Martin that game, but Jaquez, I mean, he played well. The inexperience, some moments, making the wrong reads. There was one point I watched Tyler Hero, pump fake, hesitate a three, dribbles into a triple team. In it, as being the number one guy, he's the best ball handler we have on that court. You can't do it. Fingers crossed for Rozier to come back because that would be a huge help. I know everyone wants Jimmy back, but if you could get Rozier back, there's a way you could fight your way back into this series. Uh, it's tough right now for the Heat. And if you get 5 threes from DeLon Wright, I mean, they wasted that game one from DeLon. It's tough, but we'll see what happens, come down the stretch for the Heat. So we'll see Wednesday night. Pelicans Thunder Wednesday 9:30. Touch on that a little bit. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a fun series. I mean, ultimately, it just came down to the OKC Thunder having SGA and the Pelicans not really having anyone that can match his shot making ability down the stretch. But I mean, that entire game, I really like what the Pelicans were able to do. And without Zion, we did touch on this earlier. Like, if you add Zion to that mix, this can get really interesting. I think OKC is still the better team. I think they eventually take it, but this is going to be a fun series, man. you look what Valanciunas was able to do, I think he had like 20 boards or something like that. He was kind of having his way against Chet in the paint, and OKC they pretty much do everything well except rebounding. That's like their real issue. And those second chance points, so the offensive boards is what was able to keep the Pelicans in that game. And then offensively, you mentioned McCollum. He still got something left in the tank. Bi was in. I saw someone in the comments on a post say he was in the torture chamber. So yeah, you're gonna have to see, Brandon Ingram play a little bit better offensively. But I think the key piece for them is Trey Murphy, man. We talked about him a little bit, but his ability, his fearlessness to just pull threes from deep, man. Like he'll catch it and just shoot from anywhere, and it'll go in. Like it looks good, Watching the game, it's like seeing him take one of those super long threes in your mind, it's like no way. But then you're like, as the shot is in the air, it's like, wait, this is like on target. It might actually go in. And then it falls, and you're like, okay, he can make that shot, and he does it again, and he hits another big shot. So I really like, the ability for Trey Murphy to where he can get hot, man. Like a quick 2 or 3 minutes, he can come down, hit a couple big shots, and then just like that, I believe the Thunder were on like a 7-0 run or a 12-0 run or something like that, and then Trey Murphy, he hit a couple big shots, couple big threes, and it ended the run just like that. So they have the ability, they have players that can get hot and kind of end runs, but ultimately, I just think SGA is just too much, man. Down the stretch, those guys did their best from New Orleans, like Trey Murphy. We mentioned Herb Jones. They got Najee Marshall. They have some dudes with length that will really, really give SGA like as much of a problem as you can. But ultimately, down the stretch, the big and one, he had a couple of really, really tough middies, couple tough fadeaways to keep the OKC Thunder in this game. Where down the stretch, at the end of the fourth quarter, it kind of seemed like they were just giving it away, man. Turnovers, bad possessions, but at the end of the day, SGA, top three, top two. Some people even want to say the best player in the league right now, at least top five. He's up there. MVP talks, like, just shows why he deserved to be there. Didn't have the best game. It wasn't the prettiest, but when it mattered the most, SGA came through. He hit the big shots down the stretch. But I mean, the Pelicans are a team to watch, man. They hung around to the very, very end. You add Zion back. You mentioned how he looked against the Lakers, man. 40 ball in his playoff debut or playing debut, whatever you want to call it. That's dangerous, man. If you add Zion to this team, it could really, really be interesting. I think the Thunder hang on, but Pelicans, they got some stuff, man. They got some perimeter guys. They got a bunch of length, a bunch of guys that can defend, a bunch of guys, Larry Nance, another dude that play really well, a bunch of guys they can throw at. This OKC team to give them some issues, but SGA kind of put the team on his back down the end, and I think game two could once again go either way.
Yeah, SGA number two player in the league. I'll still give the nod to Jokic. You know, I've been, an SGA guy last year. Thought he should have won most improved. I know he came in, supposedly coming into the league was supposed to be a star. He's really taken off and proven why he's a top guard in this league, if not top player. I'm looking at that OKC bench, man. They shot 41% from three. The bench alone, you get a contribution like that from your role guys, it really puts you in a good position to win. You mentioned Dort. He's been in the playoffs locking guys up for years now since Harden was on the Rockets. He did it. Harden was in the Dort chamber. Now BI is getting, it in 2024. McCollum, he was able to get buckets, but you want to see a little bit better from him. It's tough when you two guys BI and, CJ, they're getting all these different looks thrown at them and they're not really able to score. Puts them in a tough spot. They were still in the game, had a chance to win. So if you take that into account and BI just, goes off one game or CJ goes off one game, could throw the Thunder some fits. And you mentioned Jonas, 20 rebounds. I mean, he's been doing it his whole career in the playoffs, being one of the best rebounders at his position, still at his age, being able to grab 20 boards in a playoff game, played, believe nearly 30 minutes. So credit to him. Larry Nance, valuable minutes. You mentioned you got Alvarado, your guy. He's always going to give you high energy, even though
GTA.
you have GTA. And even though it's not the most efficient offensive player, he's going to get you those transition buckets, tough plays. He's going to put his body on the line, dive for loose balls. And it's really important for the Pelicans, just one of those two guys to really get it going because they have a serious chance. And then you look at the Thunder starting five. I mean, Jalen Williams, he wasn't having the best game. I think he hit that big three down the stretch in the corner, big shot in key moments. It just seemed like the Thunder always hit their shots, and they had that dog mentality. I know they're barking after every interview now, and whatever it is, they really have it. They're able to close games, and that's what make playoff teams great. Being able to close the game late in the fourth quarter, backs up against the wall, not being able to let one slip away from you, which they did, even though they had that lead. Let them get back into it. Be able to seal them off. Don't give the underdog any chance to steal that first road game. Regroup game two. Hopefully limit BI and CJ like they did in game one. But if they go off, I could see it, man. The Pelicans take one on the road. You go back to OKC, maybe get Zion later in the series. It's going to be a good matchup. I like this. These are two teams, Pelicans, BI older player, CJ older player, but really haven't been in that bright spot of the playoffs. And OKC, just the total opposite in terms of being young and not being in the playoffs and not having that experience. So two teams still trying to figure it out, two different paths. They're both here. I really like this series. And it's going to be a good one, I think, in the West. So that's going to wrap up our NBA playoff talks, man. Um, Game two for the Cavs and Magic, I believe, just about to tip off or just did 5-0 Cavs start 2 minutes into that game. So we'll get next week talking. Hopefully, all the series will be done. We'll see maybe game 6 or 7 if they go that far in terms of basketball. But got some good games coming up, man. Any comments, takes, topics, anything like that?
No, man. NBA playoffs, man. It's a fun time. A lot of good basketball being played, and draft coming up Thursday. We'll definitely cover the
Thursday,
NFL
man.
draft next week.
Penix getting traded up for, man. That's the new that might be the new smoke screen. We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. Falcons at 8. Yeah, maybe.
No doubt, man. Go episode 87. Apple, Spotify, stream all that, YouTube, go, TikTok, go pod. Like, comment, share, hit that sub button. And until next week, we'll be back with another episode, man. Peace.